Germany's rise to power in the 20th century is a story deeply intertwined with the tumultuous events of the two world wars, shaped by the nation's quest for dominance in Europe and beyond. To truly understand how Germany ascended to such a powerful and prominent position, one must begin in the aftermath of its unification in 1871, when it first emerged as a modern nation-state. Germany's unification under Prussian leadership marked the end of a series of smaller independent states and the formation of a powerful, centralized empire under Kaiser Wilhelm I and Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. This laid the foundation for Germany's future ambitions and tensions that would lead to the two world wars. The German Empire and the path to war. After its unification, Germany rapidly became a dominant force in Europe, both economically and militarily. By the early 20th century, its industrial output had surpassed that of Britain, making it one of the most technologically advanced nations in the world. However, this meteoric rise came with a deepening sense of insecurity and rivalry. Germany's leadership, under Kaiser Wilhelm II, sought to challenge British naval supremacy, aiming to establish a colonial empire that rivaled those of Britain and France. This aggressive expansionism put Germany on a collision course with other major powers. Internally, Germany was driven by a sense of nationalism and militarism, a belief that its destiny was to lead Europe. Its foreign policy, shaped by the concept of Weltpolitik, world policy, aimed to expand German influence globally, often through military means. This expansionist agenda resulted in a complex web of alliances and rivalries, as Germany sought to solidify its position against its neighbors, particularly France and Russia. These alliances, most notably the Triple Alliance with Austria-Hungary and Italy, set the stage for a broader conflict. By the eve of World War I, tensions across Europe were at an all-time high. World War I, the first act of Germany's power struggle. In 1914, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo provided the spark that ignited these tensions. Germany, bound by its alliance with Austria-Hungary, quickly became embroiled in what would become World War I. Germany's military strategy, guided by the Schlieffen Plan, involved a two-front war, a quick strike against France through Belgium, followed by a pivot to the Eastern Front against Russia. However, the plan underestimated the complexities of modern warfare. While Germany initially made significant advances, the war soon devolved into a brutal stalemate, particularly on the Western Front, where trench warfare defined the conflict. The war dragged on for 4 years, and despite early successes, Germany found itself increasingly isolated and outmatched by the Allied powers, which included Britain, France, Russia, and eventually the United States. Germany's economy was strained by the war effort, and by 1918, food shortages, civilian unrest, and military defeats brought the country to its knees. The abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II in November 1918 and the signing of the armistice marked the end of the German Empire and the beginning of a deeply humiliating chapter in German history. The Treaty of Versailles, the fall before the rise. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, placed full blame for the war on Germany and its allies. The treaty imposed harsh reparations on Germany, demanding payments to compensate for the destruction caused during the war. Additionally, the treaty significantly reduced Germany's military capabilities, stripped it of its colonies, and forced it to cede territory to its neighbors, including France, Poland, and Denmark. The Rhineland was demilitarized, and German pride was severely damaged by the war guilt clause. The economic consequences of the treaty were disastrous. Hyperinflation devastated the German economy in the early 1920s, wiping out the savings of the middle class and creating widespread poverty and unrest. The fledgling Weimar Republic, established after the fall of the German Empire, struggled to maintain stability in the face of political extremism from both the far left and the far right. Many Germans viewed the Weimar government as weak and ineffectual, particularly in its handling of the reparations and the economic crisis. This dissatisfaction would provide fertile ground for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. The rise of Hitler and the Nazis. The Great Depression, which began in 1929, further exacerbated the economic turmoil in Germany. Mass unemployment and widespread poverty created a sense of desperation among the German people, and many began to look for radical solutions. Adolf Hitler, a charismatic leader who promised to restore German pride and undo the humiliations of Versailles, capitalized on this desperation. Hitler's Nazi Party preached a message of national renewal, blaming Germany's woes on the Treaty of Versailles, the perceived weakness of the Weimar Republic, and scapegoating minority groups, particularly Jews. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Once in power, he moved swiftly to dismantle democratic institutions and establish a totalitarian regime. The Nazis used propaganda, censorship, and violence to suppress opposition and consolidate their hold on power. Hitler's vision for Germany was one of military and territorial expansion, driven by the belief in German racial superiority and the need for Lebensraum, living space, for the German people. He sought to overturn the post-World War I order and establish Germany as the dominant power in Europe. World War II, Germany's bid for global domination. Germany's aggressive foreign policy led directly to the outbreak of World War II. In 1939, Germany invaded Poland, prompting Britain and France to declare war. Over the next 2 years, Germany achieved stunning military victories, quickly conquering much of Europe, including France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Norway. Hitler's military strategy, known as Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, involved rapid, coordinated attacks by air and ground forces, which overwhelmed enemy defenses. For a time, it seemed that Germany was unstoppable. The fall of France in 1940 left Britain standing alone against the Nazi war machine. Meanwhile, Germany turned its attention to the east, launching Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, in 1941. Initially, German forces made rapid gains, but the vastness of the Soviet Union, combined with the harsh winter and fierce resistance, ultimately turned the tide against the Nazis. Germany's alliance with Japan and Italy, known as the Axis powers, expanded the war to a global scale. However, the entry of the United States into the war in 1941, following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, further tilted the balance against Germany. By 1943, the tide of the war had decisively shifted in favor of the Allies. The German defeat at the Battle of Stalingrad marked a turning point on the Eastern Front, and by 1944, Allied forces had landed in Normandy, beginning the liberation of Western Europe. The fall of Nazi Germany and its aftermath. In 1945, Germany's defeat became inevitable. Allied forces closed in from both the east and the west, and in May of that year, Berlin fell to Soviet forces. Hitler committed suicide in his bunker as the Third Reich crumbled around him. Germany's unconditional surrender ended the war in Europe, but the country was left in ruins. Cities had been reduced to rubble by Allied bombing campaigns, and millions of Germans were displaced or killed. In the aftermath of the war, Germany was divided into 4 occupation zones controlled by the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. This division eventually led to the creation of 2 separate German states, the Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany, and the German Democratic Republic, East Germany. The Cold War would see Germany become a key battleground for ideological and political influence between the West and the Soviet Union. Germany's legacy in the 20th century. Germany's rise and fall in the 20th century is a story of ambition, conflict, and devastation. From its unification in 1871 to its aggressive bid for power in the World Wars, Germany's quest for dominance reshaped the global order. The 2 world wars not only altered the geopolitical landscape of Europe but also left a lasting scar on Germany itself. The country's eventual recovery and transformation into a peaceful, democratic state in the post-war era stand in stark contrast to the militarism and totalitarianism that once drove its ascent to power.